Hello and welcome back to The Future Is Now, a Forbes show of their digital TV channel F15. My name is Camilla Sievers. I am an entrepreneur and under 30 list maker. And at this show, you will meet future builders, changing their industries and building utopias in their respective fields. Today, my guest is Dr. Nadine Nehme. She is a scientist and medical researcher with 11 years of experience in genetics, genomics, and immunology. She holds a PhD in molecular genetics from Louis Pasteur University, where she completed her studies under the supervision of Professor Jules Hoffman, and he is a Nobel laureate in medicine in 2011. She performed her postdoctoral studies at Necker Hospital in Paris, and she really focused on immune diseases and their genetics. So now she's the Chief Science Officer of Medicus AI. Medicus AI is a smart platform and app that interprets and translates medical reports and health data into easy to understand, personalized explanations and health insights, all in an interactive experience. Hi, Nadine. So nice of you to join us here.
Hi, Camilla. Thank you very much for the invite. I really am very excited for our interview. I look forward to discussing a lot of things with you today.
Yes, and no less from Dubai. So, send us some sun, please.
Sure.
We will be talking about Medicus AI, how you started and how you developed in the last couple of years, how you use AI to interpret and translate health data, how you individualize your offering. Then, of course, AI's progress in this field, where you see chances and threats in using AI in the medical realm. And last but not least, how you envision the future of your industry. But first, I want to start with 3 short intro questions. And the first one would be, Nadine, what's your biggest strength and your biggest weakness?
My biggest strength is my endless curiosity. And this comes from the fact that I'm a scientist at heart. I'm a researcher. I need to understand the issues, the opportunities. This drives me to have more empathy. Also, whenever I have a question at stake, in order for me to answer it. My biggest weakness, I think you can say that I only believe in facts. It also goes back to my background. I rely less on my gut feeling and I rely more and more on facts because we deal with a human life. And this is something that you cannot at all rely on feelings with. So it's facts driven.
And what's your life philosophy?
My life philosophy is that nothing is impossible. Always ask the right question. In this case, it's how you can achieve what you want to achieve. Don't bother much about the why for now. Ask the how, and it will lead you to a lot of beautiful places that you haven't been there before.
And what's your work philosophy?
My work philosophy has always come with me. I try to lead my team with like inspiring them by giving them directions, by giving them guidance, by giving them feedback, and by always showing the most enthusiasm and passion to what we do. I believe that if you don't have the passion that drives you behind any job, you would not succeed. You would not be here. You would not come with a joyful heart to your work, and this can be easily seen by your teammates. And if you can drive with passion and with empathy and with this velocity, your team, you can achieve a lot of good things.
I totally agree. So let's talk about your passion project. How did Medicus AI start and what has happened since then and where are you now?
Medicus is as you said, it's a passion project that started when I met my co-founder, Dr. Baher Al-Hakim. We met in Dubai in May 2015. So Baher had read the article in Wired that talks about how blood test reports haven't been revamped or changed since the 1960s and how all of this is very important to human health because empowering the patient, meaning it means empowering the people. And if we understand our health, if we are able to connect with our health, the outcome would be actually much more beneficial for everyone. So we actually were introduced via common acquaintance and we started discussing the topic. And I had this also in me because since like everything I did as a studies. Friends and families usually reach out to ask questions regarding what does this mean? I did a blood test. What would this mean? Google said I have a cancer. Am I dying tomorrow? So all of these
Everybody
things
knows
that
this. Everybody knows this who doesn't have a doctor in the family.
absolutely. So this has been an internal passion for me as well. And we clicked on the mission, on the aim of Medicus AI. We started as two people in June or May 2015. As of today, we're more than 100. We have opened offices in Paris, in Berlin, in Beirut, and recently this year we also expanded to Asia. So we have our offices in China. We are also having collaborations in Japan and Singapore. So it's a very promising story that we started, and we are aiming to continue it and to be able to drive it to the best outcome it can have.
Awesome. So you gave us a little bit of an overview of the problem that you are solving, and that's mainly that health data is not translated correctly. So
Yes.
how would you describe the overall USP that Medicus AI is providing versus if I go to a doctor and he translates it for me?
So let's start with a real case scenario. You, as a patient, or me, I just went to my doctor. And usually the doctor will give me some kind of tests to do, and he will give me some kind of a diagnosis or maybe a potential thing, something that he's thinking of. What do I do when I get home? I do my tests and then I start Googling. If I have the answer, like the blood tests, I start Googling. I start asking around. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to replace this if you want, non-fruitful most of the time search of information in order for me to understand what's going on with my life. All of the info that is needed and the search will be delivered by a report that has been done in the background by Medicus's engine that is provided to the doctor in advance, and then the doctor will be able to actually read through it, enhance it, make sure that it's providing the exact needed information for their patient, and then push it for me as a patient. This gives me a lot of power for me as a patient in order for me to be a better informed person. So the utmost aim of Medicus is to enable doctors to enable, like, we are enablers for doctors. We help them reach out their patients with more information than they usually have the time to provide them during a regular visit. Your doctor only have 15 to 20 minutes to spend with you. So if he can spend this with you by discussing how you feel, what are your fears, what do you need from him as a medical provider, and leave the if you want the specificities of what is this test, why did you order it for me, what does this test tell about my bigger picture, clinical picture. If you can provide this information to your patient in advance or even before they come to your office, they will be well informed. You will leave more and like more time for you to interact with your patient, more time for you to be able to connect to your patient. The empathy of this relationship is the most important part of a relationship between a doctor and a patient.
And where do you get the data from? Which data are you scraping and putting in your AI engine?
Exactly. So what we do is that we go to the medical literature, we go to the medical reviews, and we take what has been stated in the literature and we transform it into the application as an input output. The beautiful thing that I would say about Medicus AI is that nothing of all of this is a black box. What we do is that we do research, we check what the guidelines say, we write the rules, we provide the content that matches the rule, and we also provide the source for the patient and for the doctor for them to know where this information has been taken from. So we do not operate as a black box. Our AI strategy when it comes to the interpretation of these test results is very, we call it basic AI. These are expert systems. It's an open box where everyone can look into it and can understand what led to why. And this has been based on which guideline or which source. And
And
I think this is the most important advantage for the technology we are providing.
and what are the chances, or more the threats maybe, for AI to be used in a medical translation context?
You have a lot of threats. If we talk in general, If you have a single doctor making a single mistake, this is highly unfortunate, but it's hurting only one patient. If you go to a potential for a machine algorithm, this risk is very, very vast, because instead of reaching only one patient, this would be reaching thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. One of the threats is over reliance on algorithms. We believe that at the stage of today, we cannot over rely on algorithms. It's always the last word, like the last word would always be to the healthcare provider. The computers are really good at analyzing data, but they are not that good yet at making decisions. Decisions should be solely made by the doctor. You can ask your algorithm to analyze, because this is what they are very good at. Humans, we cannot analyze the vast amount of data that these algorithms can, but they will present you with the end data, and the doctor is the one who is supposed to take the final decision. This is where you will be combining the best of both worlds. You would be having the utmost power of these kinds of algorithms. Another threat is what we also have seen several times, unfortunately for now, is the bias in the data sometimes that is being fed to these algorithms. If your input data is biased, your output is absolutely not proper. And this can be corrected as well by human review, but you have to take the proper measures when you are designing your algorithm. Be sure that you take all the available information from minorities, from the overall population. You should be able to include a lot of the factors that would minimize your bias, including several designers, several technology officers, several medical experts. You cannot rely on one person to develop these algorithms.
And as of right now, do we have enough data from minorities? Because if you look at how, yeah, okay, so because I also believe if you look at right now with COVID, we have a lot of old people, we have a lot of people with underlying conditions. And if this is the vast majority that data is being pulled from, as you say, this will have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where we have a lot to work on.
Who are the stakeholders involved that are making the decisions that there is not enough data in order to have a fuller picture? So who would be the problem solver here?
You won't have one entity. If you want to solve these kinds of problems, these are not small problems. These are not things that can be solved. I wouldn't like, we should not be naive. This is not easy. And in order for it to be solved, you need all the stakeholders together. You need, first of all, the consent of your patient that he is okay to share his data with you. Then you need the doctors and the healthcare providers who are well aware of the what is needed as data input in order for them to be able to have a data output. One of the biggest problems is that if you feed these algorithms not really good data or no sense data, you will have a nonsense also outcome. So you have the clinicians, you have the scientists, you have the researchers, you have the nurses, you have the lab technicians, you have the insurance providers. All of them are very important stakeholders because all of them hold a piece of the information. Our health data is scattered across several stakeholders, and if they do not come together, these biases will stay.
Yeah. And you were, please continue, the third threat.
It's the privacy and the security.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, what people think about the most when we talk about AI. They think of intrusion. There have been a lot of issues where we know that hacks are happening, and no one would give their data to an algorithm that can be hacked. This have happened a lot in the past, so we need more security. We need more protocols that would ensure each and everyone's data security, and we need to really provide the privacy to these patients, the privacy to their, like, even give the consent. This is something that still amazes me. A lot of the information in several countries are being used without patient consent, and this is absolutely not ethical.
Do you see, you must see differences in overall health when you say you are active in Asia and in Europe and UAE. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is your engine doing different work in different continents?
Yes, so that's a very, very good question. For the engine to be deployed in any country, we need to do the proper research within the country, and we need to rely on the country's medical guidelines or the regional medical guidelines. So if you right now open Medicus AI in France, you would be having the EU medical guidelines, the European medical guidelines, and if there are any differences between the French and the European, you'll be applying the French one. We have differences in the guidelines in Germany, in France. We have the Chinese guidelines recently that have been added. We do follow the US guidelines a lot because most of the MENA region actually relies on the American guidelines. But even though you have different guidelines, the outcomes for the patient should not be that different. If you have a patient that has been diagnosed with diabetes in the US, he will also be diagnosed with diabetes in China. The cutoffs might be a little bit different because of the genetical background of each and every one of us, because we're all different, that's true. But and even sometimes the protocols that you would use in order for you to treat your patient would be different, because what you would recommend them to eat in the US would not be the same of what you're going to recommend them to eat in China. But taking care of your patient is the same.
Yes.
And this should not change.
Yes. This brings me to my next question, and it probably will be going into where you see the future. Because if I'm doing standard blood work and my levels are all great, now I will be a 31-year-old European, very active, very health. I don't want to say obsessed, but I eat very healthily, you know, like health is my wealth. And I've always lived that. I come from a family that lives that. So let's say I am not average, but above average healthy. I am compared though with the average person. And so some stats of this blood work might be differently recognized if they are compared to the average 31-year-old's healthy girl in Europe. And this is not done right now. Do you see this is where it's going, or is there actually a reason behind why we should compare to maybe different age groups and different health groups, so to speak?
Your question has several layers to it, and they are all super interesting. And one of the main ideas behind Medicus AI previously was to be able, with time, to actually provide the medical field with this incremental reference ranges that would depend on each and every profile. Because you being an active, healthy woman, your reference ranges are different than a person maybe with the same age, same gender, but not in a healthy state. Yet, what we have been confronted with is that, especially in the medical field, whatever is not guideline based is not accepted yet, because when we deal with human lives, when we deal with anything that relates to medicine, scrutiny is the word in order. And this means that you cannot apply anything that has not yet been adapted in the guidelines. And the guidelines do not follow. Here you have the medical and the scientific approach. I'm a scientist. I have always wanted to push things forward. And this is where you see, for example, if you look at AI and science, it's doing amazing work, because you have the window of this innovation, and you have the window of doing a lot of things that you cannot do with humans, because when you deal with the humans, this is much more fragile, and you have ethically to take care of this. You cannot apply what you apply in sciences to the medical field. All of this is to protect the patient. I agree with you that this has to be done at a faster pace, because we have the technology, we have the knowledge. What we are missing is the extensive validation, the extensive simulation, the prospective scrutiny in order for these AI algorithms that touch human life or clinical practice to be done on them before you actually just bring them to the medical field. Yet they have a huge potential, and the future is actually, like, if you look at the future, you would be looking at let's say, a software that we will be able to ingest and meaningfully process massive sets of data. This has to be done quickly. This has to be done accurately and in a non-expensive manner, because cost is also very important when we discuss healthcare. And this will allow machines to do things that humans cannot do right now, right? And if the machine does this properly, this will give you what we call high performance medicine. This is the data driven medicine that relies on your own data. And when we talk about your own data, we talk about your social inputs, your behavioral inputs, your genomics, anything that relies to your omics. If it's genomics, if it's your microbiome, immune system, any biosensors that you might have, your lab data, your even the way you communicate, even your medical history, your state of mind, all of this would be combined in order to actually help shifting our mindset from ailment to prevention.
Yeah.
Our healthcare system right now is an ailment healthcare system. What
Yes.
we really need is a prevention healthcare system where we would be taken care of before the ailment happened. And this is the future that I foresee. Like, this is the long-term future that I would foresee, and this what gives you hope in tomorrow as well.
And when do you think this will happen? Because right now, money is fueling the process. If we say this is the standard lab work, and as an amateur, this is my understanding of this, every 10 years, a couple of old guys meet, and I'm like, should we, maybe put something else in here? Maybe who's going to pay us money to do that? Who is
Yeah.
the beneficiary overall? So how long do you think this will take? And are the stakeholders involved right now, do they understand what tech can do here?
We do see a lot of changes. We do see that a lot of innovative mindsets are being in charge recently, and we do see that this is coming soon. Soon, it's in the next 10 years, which is already amazing, because exactly, because you see that a lot of the we have a new wave of innovators that are being in charge right now. True that, and unfortunately it's the economy or the money that would talk at the end. But we are reaching especially with the COVID crisis right now, we are reaching a place where people do understand the importance of health and the importance of proper organization, because the current healthcare system has failed us all. The lack of ventilators have these logistical shortcomings have failed everyone.
Yes. And also, I think the understanding of pharma is one thing, but the lobby behind the nutrition industry is it's the biggest industry in the world, and it's been making people sick because it has
Sure.
put the number one drug, which is sugar, in almost anything we consume. And then on the other hand, people that are gaining weight. They don't really understand what this means in the short
Why?
and the long term.
Yeah. This is why educational solutions such as our smart reports, for example, it provides you with a basic education that you can actually read through, and you can maybe it would just be an eye opener, I would say, because um, I believe that everyone educated in one way or another, we have all read books. We have all maybe, learned from life and from academia. But what's important for you is to be reminded sometimes of these small things, like search for the hidden sugar or search for the hidden trans fat that you have been consuming for a long time right now, and this is actually blowing your numbers, like your lab tests, and you don't even know why, because these are not mentioned properly. And you really have to look at the you have to flip, and you have to look at the very small writing to check for the ingredients, which most of us don't do, because we do assume good. Like, we assume that this is a product that has been advertised, it must be good.
Exactly, because the government is going to take care of it, and they wouldn't want us sick.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
agree.
maybe as an overall last big question, what does utopia in your field look like in terms of AI and in terms of what AI fueled medical advice can do?
This is, first of all, equality, equal access to healthcare, equal access to education, equal access to a decent life. If you talk about utopian society, if you don't have the equality among people, you cannot achieve what you have to achieve. You need a decent life. It still amazes me that today there are countries that do not have access to water.
And now we're betting on it, right?
Exactly.
That has become the new
Exactly.
resource, the new gold.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you think the process of equality can be fueled by a better technological solution, like using AI? Is this going to lift people up, or governments maybe? Is it
Yes.
going to be a, yeah.
I mean, we have seen, if you look at the COVID crisis, even though it's one of the biggest challenges we have lived in so far, you can see that positive things are coming out of it, even though it has been very painful. You can see that there are national partnerships happening all over the world in order for public authorities, national health institutions to partner up and to provide help for people. You have seen that. A lot of, for example, once the virus has been isolated and genetically sequenced, it has been put on an open public data source that was being accessible from the US. These things never happened before. Before, scientists had a big competition between them. Now everyone is helping everyone. So you have a lot of initiatives, you have advances, you have people who are really trying to move things forward. We still have a lot to do, but we have hope. Like if we see what the humanity was able, like when we were faced with this genuine threat, humanity did rise to the occasion. Humanity did rise to the challenges. Now it's up to us to use this properly, to to keep this engagement, to keep this openness, and to actually, let's leave the questions for later. Like let's leave the questions about how did this happen, why did this happen, but let's deal with what we have right now, because this is what's the most important, to save people's life. We have lost a lot of lives so far. This pandemic has been really difficult on all of us. Yet, if we look at what we have learned from it, we do have positive and like positive, not only ideas but collaborations. That exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Nadine. Thank you so much. Let's proceed to sentences that you please end for me. The first one
Sure.
being, what do you think the long-term effects of the COVID crisis are?
I think that we have a lot of consequences that started to reveal themselves. We have a lot of socioeconomical, mental health related issues. If left unchecked, we will have real risks for tomorrow. Yet we do have a chance right now to build a better tomorrow. Um, as we have just said, this crisis allowed us to see like an acceleration. We used AI in accelerating medical research. We used AI to assist healthcare professionals. We did use AI to promote knowledge and also misknowledge sharing. We did use AI to model the spread of the pandemic. We did use AI for the vaccines, for the modeling of the vaccines and how we can control the all of these technologies. If put in good use, this pandemic will have a positive outcome at the end.
Great. My philosophy as a child was,
How to make a bigger impact.
I envision a utopian future as,
An equal future for everyone, where everyone has access to a decent life with the right healthcare access, the right education, and access to water.
I envision a dystopian future as,
The current life we are living, which is dominated by diseases and lack of access to equal healthcare.
and a future builder who should be interviewed here at The Future Is Now is.
Jean-Luc Durson, Dr. Jean-Luc Durson, who is the CEO of BioNext, one of the biggest labs in Luxembourg. He is one of the most innovative mindsets we have encountered. Whenever we have a crazy idea or an innovative idea and we talk to him about it, it's either he is sharing the enthusiasm with us or he's way behind, like ahead of us, and he's already been thinking of it. He is like the definition of an innovator in the healthcare field.
Perfect. Nadine, thank you so much for all your insights, for your vision of the future, and everything that you've shared. I think it was very insightful. I think a lot of people will immediately download Medicus AI and start using it. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure we will meet one day in person. Please tell me if you manage to go to Europe. And
Yes.
I thank all of you for watching. Everything that we've talked about, you find in the show notes. We love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please comment, please suggest who we should interview. And as always, I see you next week at another episode of The Future Is Now.